County. First thing the man accused of stalking Caitlin Clark said this morning in a Marion County courtroom. I was in the courtroom for that initial appearance for 55-year-old Michael Lewis. He is from Texas. Our own iTeam 8 found that he posted more than 800 times on X, all aimed towards Caitlin Clark. Most of those messages are too sexually explicit for us to air on TV. During the hearing, he appeared to be very erratic, often laughing while the judge was talking. He also revealed that he may be mentally ill and that the jail has not been giving him his medication. He also says that he's been living out of his car and has been arrested for stalking in the past. He has a no contact order, of course, for Caitlin Clark. That includes no texts, no social media posts about her. He has also been ordered to stay away both from Gamebridge Fieldhouse, where the Fever play, and Hinkle Fieldhouse, where Caitlin's boyfriend plays basketball for the Butler Bulldogs. His bond was set for $50,000, although he did reveal that he does not plan on posting bail. His next court date is set for March 31st.
Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of Viral. I'm your host as always, Kendrick Dix here. Glad you join us here on Viral. We talk about WNBA star Caitlin Clark being stalked by a stalker. We'll get to it in a minute, but first thing first, join in the conversation using the hashtag Viral here on Connect. And don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe is caring. Tell a friend, call a friend, hit that subscribe button so you won't miss a thing. All right, let's get to the meat and the bones of the matter right now here on Viral. We talk about WNBA star Caitlin Clark, who's been a popular figure for quite some time since her college days in Iowa. Now she plays for the Indiana Fever. And what a Fever pitch this is going to be coming up. We talk about this. Caitlin Clark being harassed by a stalker. What is really going on for real? Let's get the details on what's going on with Caitlin Clark being harassed by a stalker that is deranged.
Michael Lewis was in this courtroom here behind me this morning. The court entered a not guilty plea for the man accused of stalking Caitlin Clark, despite his very first words in a hearing with multiple outbursts.
Almost as soon as Michael Lewis walked into court Tuesday morning,
Morning, Mr. Lewis.
Guilty
No.
he began to talk out of turn, even as Judge Angela Davis told him he has the right to remain silent.
Listen, I'll give you a chance to talk. Not your time. Stop talking.
Lewis is accused of felony stalking. Court docs allege he sent multiple threatening and sexual messages to Fever star Caitlin Clark from the X account RacerX2031. In recent weeks, he traveled from Texas to Indianapolis, and investigators say this was to get closer to Clark. Lewis mentioned her in court Tuesday.
Do you understand the charges against you?
Can I say something?
Not yet.
Michael Lewis
Not.
lassos Clark.
Police arrested Lewis Sunday in downtown Indy. The initial hearing Tuesday was to advise Lewis of his charges and conditions if he were to be released, but Lewis struggled to take the hearing seriously.
No junior.
No Junior? Is your last name Junior?
I'm free. You got the wrong guy.
Lewis also said he needs medication for his mental health and it's not being given to him. The judge said a doctor will evaluate him. The court entered a plea of not guilty on his behalf and had Lewis sign a no contact order and a stay away order.
You will not be allowed near Hinkle Fieldhouse, near Gamebridge Fieldhouse, or near Caitlin Clark. Do you understand? You can go anywhere else.
For the time being, it appears Lewis will remain in the Marion County Jail on a $50,000 bond.
Look, I'm setting bond.
I'm not, look, I don't want bond there or whatever. I'm here. I'm staying here.
If Michael Lewis were to bond out, he would not be allowed to leave the state and would be on GPS monitoring to ensure he follows the no contact order and the stay away order. Reporting in Indianapolis, Eric Graves.
As you saw right there, Caitlin Clark had to put a restraining order out on this stalker to stay numerous feet from her and her boyfriend. This stalker even wanted to come to Indiana, even wanted to come to the WNBA games. He's even barred from the WNBA house games in that field house out there. Man, I don't blame her because, now these days people are getting crazier and crazier and the stalking becoming more significant as well. Like I said, Caitlin Clark really her life was at hands by this stalker who just wanted to harass her and stuff. Let's hear what you people had to say. You people had a lot to say about Caitlin Clark being stalked by her stalker. Let's get what you had to say on what people said right now.
Not surprising, right? Because unfortunately, there are a lot of cuckoos out there. And unfortunately, with the internet, there is easier access to almost anyone. So you see this story, and you can read the details in the link in the description from Women's Fast Break on SI. I don't really need to get into the specific details as much as there was a man from Texas who traveled to Indianapolis. He's been arrested he's alleged to have stalked Caitlin Clark and sent her threatening text messages and the like, just a gross situation all around. And Michael Lewis is the guy's name. Apparently, some of the messages were been driving around your house 3 times a day, but don't call the law just yet. And according to court documents, the cops talked to Caitlin Clark, and she expressed that she'd become fearful, even altered her public appearance, concerned for her safety after learning he was in Indianapolis. And of course, I mean, that's a reasonable response to stuff like this because you don't know what people are capable of. I mean, unfortunately, this is not the first time something like this has happened either. Somebody was arrested for stalking Paige Beckers too. And that's the celebrity of these young women that comes into play. And so first and foremost, obviously, the best news is that nothing came of this in the scheme of Caitlin Clark is fine and okay and just had to deal with something that nobody should have to deal with. But also, the good thing is this guy's been arrested, and we'll see what happens as the legal system plays out. But when you look at it sort of macro for a second, away from this, and I don't want to use a story this serious and that this grave to get at anybody or to prove any point, right? Like, it is what it is. It's nobody's fault but this person, and it sucks for Caitlin Clark. But Caitlin Clark has been the center of so many different conversations for months. She has been the talk of the sports world and beyond. Basically every day she was for months. And those conversations went to all kinds of crazy places. Some of it was basketball. Much of it was not basketball. Obviously, she was asked to weigh in on other WNBA players being harassed or what her fans were doing, racial implications of her being a white girl in the league. You had people on, Carnival Barkers, as I've talked about it, on both sides going nuts. CNN talking about it. Like, it just became this entire whole thing. And so much of the social media pressure and even the pressure within the league came, to point the finger at her fans, Caitlin Clark fans, Indiana Fever fans. And in a way, that's tacitly saying it's her responsibility, which is why people said, oh, she needs to come and speak out. And speak out. And she did. And then she did again. And then she addressed it in the Time magazine piece. And regardless, people used her to further their narratives or push their agendas. And you still see it. You still see, oh, Caitlin Clark fans are doing this. Caitlin Clark Fever fans are doing this, even when they're not necessarily doing that. And that's not to say anyone should be on the receiving end of anything hateful. Of course they shouldn't. It should be deemed reprehensible no matter who is on the receiving end, right? Of course it's unacceptable. I've said that a billion times. The problem is you cannot stop online trolls. They're just, and as the league grows, more people are following it and more people are going to want to shitstir. That's just the nature of volume, increasing the volume like that. And I've said from the beginning, it was inevitable. I mean, it sucks that Caitlin Clark had to be on the receiving end of something that actually, scared her. That's terrible. And hearts out to her and anybody else who's been, in a situation like that. But it was inevitable that she was going to deal with nonsense and craziness and hate. And it was going to be prevalent, and probably more so than for anyone else, because she is bigger than anyone else. But you never heard her talk about that. You never heard her put that into the public. And it was a point that I raised several times in the midst of all the pressure around her and all the conversation around her, that doesn't seem like anybody seems to care about her. It's just what her fans are doing, or what she needs to do, or what she represents, or what's going on because of her. And what about her? You think it's fun to be the subject of those conversations every single day? You think it's fun for people to use your name in that way? You think it's fun to make you a basketball player who said nothing but positive things about your peers in the sport and the growth of the game to be positioned as if you are some sort of culture war instigator? Is that fun? No, of course that's not fun. And that's just that doesn't even include something like this. So I do hope it's a bit of a cautionary tale for Caitlin Clark, for people who are covering Caitlin Clark, and for future Caitlin Clarks, whomever they may be, in whatever sport they may be. That, everybody here is a human. We don't want human beings to be treated in a way that frightens them or dehumanizes them or is just hateful towards them. And I would say that about any player in the WNBA, any player in any league. But with Clark specifically, it seemed like whatever you could do to get engagement and to fire up discourse was fair game, and no one gave a shit about her. And look, I've covered her frequently. The genesis, the growth of this channel specifically is owed to her and the Indiana Fever, and now I'm covering women's basketball as a whole as well. And I firmly believe in that theory of the rising tide lifting all boats, and of her elevating everything else. So now you don't only talk about her, everybody starts talking about everything else. And you see that happening in real time, which is tremendous, which is amazing, which only helps her legacy and only helps everyone else. But to get there, we had her. And everybody had her. And no one seemed to care about her. And that's, I think, the thing that stuck out with me about this story. It's not surprising. It really isn't, which is terrible, but just reality. Not surprising. But I hope it shows people, just because she's famous, just because she's a huge celebrity, just because she kept it pushing the whole time, she ate it all and kept it pushing, doesn't mean she can't be affected too.
Clark to WNBA star Caitlin Clark's alleged stalker, the suspect in court today, in the bizarre outburst, what he said to the judge. Here's Ariel Reshef.
Tonight, the man accused of terrorizing WNBA Rookie of the Year Caitlin Clark for weeks with threatening and sexually explicit online messages appearing in court.
Morning, Mr. Lewis.
Guilty as
No.
55-year-old Michael Lewis charged with stalking for allegedly sending the 22-year-old Indiana Fever star multiple messages and posts via the platform X starting in mid-December. In one message, Lewis allegedly telling Clark that he drove around her house 3 times a day. And in another, he allegedly stated his plan to go to a game and sit behind her team's bench. Police say Lewis even traveled from his home in Texas to Indianapolis to be closer to Clark. Investigators tracking him to a hotel near the team's home arena and questioning him about the messages. Lewis allegedly claiming it's an imagination, fantasy type thing. It's a joke. Police warning Lewis to cease contact with Clark, later arresting him on Sunday after they say the messages continued. David, the court entered a not guilty plea on Lewis's behalf, the judge questioning his mental state. He's now being held on $50,000 bail. He's been ordered to stay away from Clark.
In a world of trouble for allegedly stalking Caitlin Clark after officials say he connected with the WNBA superstar with threats and sexually explicit messages on social media and then drove to Indianapolis. 55-year-old Michael Lewis was taken into custody and charged with stalking, a level 5 felony in Indianapolis on Sunday after the cops say they trace his activity to a hotel room in the area. Indianapolis Metropolitan PD say officers first made contact with Lewis last week week, and he downplayed the nature of the messages, claiming they were more fantasy than reality. He also stated he was only in Indianapolis on vacation. Even after he was requested to stop, officials say the messages continue, leading law enforcement to take swift action. Clark herself raised her concern when speaking to the police, according to court documents obtained by TMZ Sports. She said she even adjusted her public appearance schedule out of fear for her safety. Several of Lewis's alleged messages to Clark were also included in the docs, and they are disturbing. Some of them mention being near Caitlin Clark's residence, with Lewis allegedly stating, "Been driving around your house 3 times a day, but don't call the law just yet. The public is allowed to drive by Gamebridge, aka Caitlin's field house. A Texas man is in a world."
Still very much a real person with real concerns, real fears.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times people have a tendency to forget that they're talking about real people. And you see a lot of people who post a lot of things online that are sometimes hurtful or derogatory, and they maybe don't think or realize that it has an impact on a real person. And you can tell from the probable cause affidavit that this has had a profound impact on her. But I think it's also important to highlight that she's not the only person who experiences threats. She's not the only person who has to experience the things that are outlined in the probable cause affidavit in our community. And so I think it also sends hopefully a larger message to a larger group of people and to the community as a whole, is that no woman should have to endure these sorts of things and should not have to endure these types of messages, these types of threats when they're in the workplace. And I think what you see here is there's sometimes a reluctance for people to come forward in domestic violence type relationships and relationships where people are saying really awful things. I think a lot of times people maybe try to just say, oh, I'm just going to ignore it. But there does come a point in time where law enforcement intervention is appropriate. And what we really, certainly as someone who's a prosecutor and other individuals in law enforcement, felt that there was immediacy to this threat, and that it was important for us to act quickly given the nature of what was alleged and what was being communicated online, coupled with the affirmative steps to come from Texas to Indianapolis.
Pretty commendable by Pacers Sports and Entertainment to be that.
Posts or anything along those lines, or else we'll be filing additional charges. And it's also important to note that there's a stay away order. Stay away from Gamebridge, stay away from Hinkle Fieldhouse, because we want to send a very clear message that this conduct, this alleged conduct, needs to stop immediately. And so the first part of this is advising him of his rights, but also making sure that he understands.
Morning, Mr. Lewis.
Guilty as
No,
charged.
sir. This is initial hearing.
Oh.
We are not. You have a right to remain silent, and I expect you to exercise that. Okay, this is just telling you what the charges are. You do not listen. I'll give you a chance to talk. Not your time.
Throw me the bookie.
Stop talking. You have a right to know what your charges are. You're charged with stalking as a level 5 felony. All right, they are alleging level 5 felony carries 1 to 6 years in the Department of Corrections with a presumptive sentence of being 3 years. They are alleging that on or about December 16th, 2024 and January 11th of 2025, Michael Thomas Lewis Jr. did stalk another person, to which Caitlin Clark, by engaging in a knowing or intentional course of conduct involving repeated or continued harassment of Caitlin Clark that would cause a reasonable person to feel terrorized, frightened, intimidated, or threatened, and that actually caused Caitlin Clark to feel terrorized, frightened, intimidated, or threatened, and did make an implicit or explicit threat with the intent to place Caitlin Clark in reasonable fear of sexual battery. That's the charges. Do you understand the charges against you?
Can I say something?
Not yet.
Michael Lewis
Not.
lassos Clark.
No. I'm asking you, you need an attorney. Are you planning to hire one?
I need medication. I need it.
You also might need that, but
They did give me my medication.
Perfect. All right. So do you suffer from mental illness?
I need my medication.
And what medication are they not giving you? There is a no contact order with Caitlin Clark. Do you understand that? You need to sign it. Perfect. Do you understand? And I'll give you a copy of it to make sure that you understand. You are to have no contact with her whatsoever. Direct, indirect. You cannot call her under your PIN number, anyone else's. You may not contact her via any social media or text or phone or computer. Do you understand that? Yes. You are also to stay away from Gainbridge Fieldhouse and Hinkle Fieldhouse. Okay. Is that within 500 feet or 1,000?
I don't know. I'd ask the court for clarification because Gainbridge is downtown. I think you're going to be a quarter mile away from it if you're just on the highway. He's in custody right now. It doesn't matter. But
I'll do 500 feet. But you cannot go in the building. Cannot walk by. Cannot park outside of it. You need to give your phone number and whatever address you have. Because if you post bond, you will be on GPS. There will be a hold for pickup, which means they will put an ankle monitor on your foot, and they will know your whereabouts. If you violate either the stay away order or the no contact order, your bond, and it's proven by a preponderance of the evidence, or if you try to contact her again, the court will revoke your bond. If you violate the no contact order in the jail or out, they can file an invasion of privacy. You have now been told by the court you may have no contact with her of any kind. Your bond is set in the amount of $50,000 surety. That's $5,000 to a bondsman, and you must remain in the state of Indiana unless you get permission. You will be on GPS. You will not be allowed near Hinkle Fieldhouse, near Gainbridge Fieldhouse, or near Caitlin Clark. Do you understand? You can go anywhere else you want other than those places.
Yes.
And you'll fill out the paperwork to allow him. All right. So I'll see you on March 31st unless you tell me otherwise. And that's a hold for pickup. Thank you. I would suggest that you remain silent in the jail and only talk to your attorney.
You people had a lot to say, saying the same sentiments. Caitlin Clark being harassed by a stalker. Hopefully this not comes, this will be probably the final end of that. You know, we don't know what the outcome might be. And Caitlin Clark going to really have some high profile security now to make sure that she is not being stalked and harassed by a stalker that could have done something real crazy. We hear those stories and stuff about people who want to be fantasized with celebrities and celebrities being stalked constantly of their own home by deranged individuals that really need help and really need the help they need. All right. Thank you all for watching this edition of Vibe. We talk about Caitlin Clark being harassed by a stalker, and she got it justified as she should have by getting a restraining order. I've been your host, Kendra Dix, saying so long. Thanks for watching this edition of Vow.